She was just as loopy as the rest, but understood in a more profound way the responsibilities that went along with the power of the Widow's Bay witch. "I know you hear the sirens. Go get that story, dear." "Yep, and I'll get Grady to get one of the werewolves over here. Maybe not Finn, but one of them. Maxine needs to stay away from that shovel." "Well, that strained wrist will slow her down, but not for long. And all the wolves in Grady's pack have nice heinies. Any one of them would do nicely. We're not too choosy." "Aunt Dot." She smiled, and I kissed her on the cheek. "Have a nice day," she said, and I left with a shake of my head and a smile on my face. I loved them all fiercely. I knew now that they'd helped me find my purpose in the world since I'd moved back to my hometown. I was a witch, just like them. Well, I was learning to be just like them. But it was time to put my witch duties aside for a bit and go to work. I was also a reporter for the online news site Your UP News. There were sirens blaring. Witching was my heart and soul, but breaking news was my bread and butter. "She's dead." The atmosphere at Pizzazz Academy was decidedly lacking in titular pizzazz. There was energy, all right, but the enemy wasn't razzle-dazzle. It was frustration and shock. Pizzazz Academy was the place for the young dancers of Widow's Bay to learn their craft. The school, I'd learned, was the only one in town where a kid could learn tap, jazz, modern dance, and cheerleading skills. I discovered all this thanks to my Google skills. The sound of the sirens had led me to Pizzazz Academy. Florine Laplaisance, or Miss Florine as she was known, was the owner and head dance teacher. She was also recently dead. There was a crowd gathered outside the police tape. On my way to get a closer look, I passed a few mothers. Some were shielding their children, others just gawking from a respectable distance. Pizzazz Academy was on the first floor of a 3-story building on Main Street. The front window was large and faced the street. I'd driven by on occasion, and there were always a dozen or so students inside, lined up, rehearsing. I'd seen but never met the owner. From the street, on any given afternoon, Florine Laplaisance could be seen circulating among the young dancers and correcting a hand position here or a posture there. I had no interest, other than passing, nor knowledge of life as a dance mom, as my 2 sons were jocks from the crib to college. I had to figure it was similarly intense, though. Almost any activity a kid engaged in, from robotics to chess to football, could get a parent's insides contorted into a ball of nerves and their minivan converted into a shuttle service to performances, competitions, or tournaments. I didn't judge the dance mom. I was the dance mom. We were all dance moms, really. Detective Byron Duluth was on the scene, and so were my friendly neighborhood coroner van drivers, Greenie and Graham. I craned my neck about to listen in as they got the stretcher out of their van and walked to the door of the Pizzazz Academy. They were always good with a little extra tidbit or two for my stories. "I took dance here." "You did not." "Yep, Mom made me because I slouched. Miss Florine was not too thrilled to have me." "'Cause you're a klutz?" "No, because she was none too thrilled about anyone, much less a klutz." "Hey, fellas." I greeted them when it became clear they weren't saying any more. "Hey, Marzie." "Hear anything? Heart attack? Stroke?" I had no idea what I was dealing with here. "Can't say, but I can tell you the EMTs don't look too tired." I leaned my head into the glass and saw what they'd indicated. The EMTs usually left a trail of gloves, cotton, syringe wrappers, you name it, in their wake when they raced the clock to save a life. This time, I would bet they got here past the time they could do a thing for the person on the wood floor of the dance studio. Things were spick and span if you didn't count the body on the well-worn boards. I got to work immediately. "Hello, Marzie Nowak, Your UP News. What happened?" Sometimes, if you wanted a story, you couldn't beat around the bush. It meant people in the middle of the story didn't have time to frame answers, so you got their unvarnished truth. Most of the time, I was the first experience a person had with a member of the news media in their face. I'm not ashamed to say I used that to my advantage to get natural reactions and impressions.